Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Chaile Time. Toby, how are you?
I'm tired, Zebberman. I'm getting old now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it too much traveling?
Yes.
You can't keep up.
I've been away for a week. Cape Town, Durban. When was it? Last Tuesday. Left a client around about 2 o'clock. Went to the airport. Got on a plane that evening. Landed at Cape Town 9 o'clock in the evening. Got into the hotel at 10 o'clock in the evening. CCMA the next day. After CCMA, back to Cape Town International, got on the plane, got to Durban, also 9 o'clock in the evening, got to the hotel 10 o'clock, did work at the company Thursday, Friday, straight through the weekend, Monday evening flew back and I'm back. Yesterday was my first day here, but I was like a zombie. I was just like walking around, just like,
Welcome back.
who are you guys?
But how was it? How
Oh, it was great. It was fantastic. Yeah, we had a good CCMA case. We're going to talk about it a bit today. So in that case, the client gave us a mandate to settle on 50,000 Rand. Look, the client would have, I'm convinced the employer would have won the case had we go through arbitration. But settling is not about admitting guilt or anything. Settling is often just because, the legal process can sometimes take forever.
My commissioner.
And a settlement brings it to a finality. So we ended up settling on 11, I started on a nuisance payoff. I said to Lisa, okay, we'll settle on 5.5. The commissioner's like, how did you get to 5.5? But of course, that book there never split the difference.
Yeah.
They say you never settle on a round amount. You must say something like 5,343.20 cents, because then it sounds like psychological, like you've really worked this out and you really only have this amount of money. Then people are inclined to accept lower thresholds, So then the commissioner was like, can't you just do 1 week pay? And the person's monthly salary was like 50,000. I said, I'll go consult my client. Come, let's go. But I already knew I had a much higher mandate. So we went there, bloop, 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 talking, laughing, come back.
You see, now the commissioners are going to see our secrets.
Yeah, we'll do 11,000 Rand. Yeah, it's fine.
They're going to see our secrets because that's something that yesterday I did not, I don't know if I would call myself the lucky one or what. I was at the CCMA yesterday.
Yeah.
Someone who's holding a high position in the company. But the commissioner did the job for me.
Yeah.
Working there because we went for conciliation in December and then we did not resolve. But yesterday the commissioner explained the importance of why we must revert back to conciliation. She did all the job for me. She explained to the applicant that, this can take another year or two.
Yeah, it can take forever.
Your name is going to be on all the records. It's going to be a public thing. And then blah, 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 blah. Everything that I normally use as an ammunition, not really an ammunition, which is reality. It's not ammunition, actually. It's actually the truth. The commissioner unpacked it so well, so nice, and then they understood. And that's when I took the curveball, and I'm like, 1 month, then I walked out.
But you could have getting people to withdraw cases. But I had a similar experience last week at the CCMA, where the commissioner also, I was like trying to bully the employee, but listen, now if we go for arbitration, like the previous arbitration, you're going to lose this one too, But I told the employee. And I had 500,000 Rand on the table for him. He didn't want to take the 500,000 Rand. I said, yeah, but you're going to lose this arbitration too. And as I told you other time, arbitration is with prejudice. If a new employer phones us for a verification, we're going to send him the arbitration award. So the commissioner is like, you know what, Mr. Nell, you don't even have to send it. The new employer can just type his ID number into the CCMA app and see it. I'm like, yeah, Mr. Commissioner, that's right.
No, but at least you managed to rest.
When?
Okay.
Where? Rest what?
Let's wait now.
Yes, I thought myself I want to take a day off. No, we ended up working.
Do you know who is Bushiri? Do you know the name Bushiri?
Yeah, I do.
Who is Bushiri?
I know, but I'll contain myself. He's like a pastor, prophet.
So Bushiri got our friend into trouble.
I still don't understand that. Why is it so wrong to go visit the prophet or pastor?
But he apologized. And then whereby
Why must he apologize?
He apologized,
Are we
but
going to-
2 weeks back or 3 weeks back, he said he's not going to apologize.
Okay, but now, if you go to church on Sunday, must you apologize? Are we living in a country like that now? We apologize when we go to church?
So it seems like
Or is there more than what meets the eye?
there's more issues there.
Okay, I understand. Look at this. The government is looking for him. Okay, so he's a juvenile, né? So the government is looking for him. I understand. Look, I understand. You know, if it is now seen MK parties in bed with criminals, but is that really the issue? I mean, how many other fraud and criminal allegations are there not against Zuma and whoever?
Even yesterday, I think
I'm not
there
saying
was
it's
something
true.
about-
I'm just saying, you know, it is so in the media space. You know, visiting a fraudulent pastor, is it really now such a wrong thing that will cost you your job in the MK party? Unless, of course, if he was told not to go and it went anyway. Well, that's different.
Are you still joining MK?
Who, me?
Yes.
Nee, man. Why would I join MK? Have I ever said I'll join MK?
I'm joking.
Nee, man.
Okay, enough about politics.
I'm not Zulu enough for that.
No, it's not only for Zulus, but that will be a story for another day. Enough about politics. What are we talking about today?
The title today is, on the CV you were a 10 out of 10, but in terms of your work, only a 2.
I've dismissed someone for that.
On your CV you were a 10 out of 10, but in terms of your actual work output, only a 2. Yeah, talk to me about the one you dismissed. So we're dealing with poor performance today.
Yes. So now, this lady, I think, was based in Cape Town. So they're dealing with service providers for network, you know. So in her CV, she stated that she's got a car. But now, because she was employed to go from area to area to make sure that activations are happening and then people have installed your gazebos and stock it's enough for activations, because they will give free goodies, you know. But she couldn't travel because she didn't have a car. But in her CV, she stated that she had a car.
What is it with these people? Is this a South African thing?
I don't
be
know.
lying on our CVs, eh?
So I think she was waiting to work for a certain few months and only buy a car after that.
Yeah?
But she got caught out. And she was put in a hearing and she was dismissed. But the way she was so arrogant, I thought she was going to take the matter to the CCMA, but
Yeah, man, but yeah,
she
even
disappeared.
this case, okay, so in this case, so just quickly, you know, today we want to, from a legal perspective, focus a bit more on what's the difference between misconduct and poor performance, because sometimes the lines are blurred and we always seem to end up dealing with misconduct in the workplace, but what is poor performance, okay? And so we're going to talk a little bit about my case in Cape Town last week. And when the commissioner asked us, you know, in conciliation, so what was the employee dismissed for? We said poor performance. So the commissioner, he's got like a slogan. He said, okay, so I should have, but I didn't, or I couldn't have.
I should have, but
I didn't.
But I could have.
Or I couldn't have. That's actually a bit of a slogan, how to differentiate between misconduct and poor performance. So when you should have, but you didn't, it means misconduct. Okay? But I couldn't have means I was not able to do it. That's incapacity. So in poor performance, you know, in the LRA, the grounds for dismissal, you know, misconduct, operational requirements, but incapacity has got 2 divisions to it. One is now poor performance, another one in terms of the code of good practice is medical incapacity. There are other forms of incapacity too, like legal incapacity, so on and so forth. The underlying principles are the same, okay? So, but now, how do you differentiate between the two? Poor performance or incapacity is an ability issue, where you are not able to adhere to your contractual obligations or to the obligation to perform to a required standard. And this is sometimes where it's difficult to differentiate between, was a certain action misconduct in terms of the person was negligent, or was it action in terms of the person is actually not performing? Because sometimes we use the words interchangeably. Like, for instance, poor performance in that you failed to lock the door, or poor performance in that you failed to assist the client with whatever work you were supposed to do. But then when you investigate, you realize that the person is able to do the job, they just didn't do the job. Then it is misconduct, then it's negligent. But if the person is incapable of doing the job, okay, then it is performance. So to come back to the story, and this is interesting, this is why I say, the title on your CV, you scored a 10 out of 10, but in reality, you only scored like a 2 out of 10. This lady, she joined a fairly small startup company, but she's what I call a white-collar worker. So these are high-profile employees, and the salary is quite great. As I said earlier on, the salary was 50,000 rand per month.
Yes.
And but now you will see Chaile on a CV. Yes, what a great CV. Experience in everything the company wants for this position. So she was employed as like a product manager, product owner, or whatever the case may be. And she's got qualifications, she's got years of industry experience in being a product manager. Even project management, she is excited about her experience as a project manager. But eventually, the employer followed the due process, in my view, in terms of Schedule 8, Subsection 9 of the Code of Good Practice, and eventually, a couple of months later, she was dismissed for poor performance. Yes. But now you must see this, Chaile. I just start laughing. I'm like, I must appreciate us as a human species. We're a simple species, We can put people on the moon and hopefully soon on Mars, but on the other hand, we're so fragile, Now she's got the CV. But now her 7-Eleven form, the form she refers to the CCMA. Now, somewhere there it asks you, explain yourself, why do you feel the dismissal was unfair? And then she starts explaining. She wasn't trained, she wasn't skilled. It's the first time she dealt with performance, project management. And I'm like, huh? CV, 7-Eleven. Like, really, this is the same person. And I was ready to lead in the arguments in arbitration. To say, listen, is this really about you? It's got your names on both.
Because it's well decorated.
It's well decorated on the CV. Yes, she's smart. Experience in project manager. I've got no project management experience. It's like, yes, I'm missing something here. So if you're an employee, if you want to take your boss to the CCMA, you must make sure, especially if it's performance, that your 7-Eleven form match with your CV. But you've got a similar experience.
I've got
with
a
that.
similar experience, but it was a misconduct. But the gentleman got injured in his legs, so he was put there was an incapacity process that took place, incapacity due to ill health. So alternatives, then they checked his CV, and then they also checked with him, can you work at the warehouse? Can you manage the warehouse? It's a matter of making sure that stock that is coming back, same company, activities, they do activities.
Yeah?
Yeah, but now this one was based in Gauteng, unlike that lady that I was talking about, who came
yeah.
to have a car. Can you work at the warehouse to make sure that you dispatch, and then whatever that is left comes, you just record, put on the file, It's inventory. It's a normal thing. Whatever that is coming in, you record. Whatever that is going out, you record. At the end of the day, everything must balance out. He got a final written warning in a year's time, because he worked that job for like 1 year, 6 months.
Okay.
Then he got dismissed for misconduct, negligence, and whatever. He went to the CCMA, conciliation, locked horns, went for arbitration. Arbitration, I'm like, my good sir, can you go to your CV, page 7?
CV.
On that bundle of documents there, please go to your CV. Go to your CV. I'm like, okay, let's see. Work experience, previous employment history. Worked at the motorbike company. He was working at the warehouse, managing the warehouse, dispatching stock, and then receiving stock. Next company, I worked somewhere in Isando. Then I'm like, okay. And I made him to read that. Then I went back now to say, but here you are claiming that you never got trained, you didn't have experience in that. So now, are you being dishonest now towards the
CV?
No. Are you being dishonest in this commission? No, it's not like, I'm like, I put it to you that now you are being dishonest because this is what your CV is saying.
But you see, they're setting themselves up to fail. You mustn't lie in your CV. You mustn't overstate your experience and qualifications and skills on your CV, because the day when you're not going to perform that, you're going to forget about the CV. Then you're going to type on that 7-11 form. Yeah, never train. What does the act say? Assisting. Never got assistance. What does the act first say? Coach.
Support.
They must give me support. They never gave me support. But yeah, I'm the president of marketing. But you know, Chepo, last week sometime, before I went on this tour thing, I did a performance hearing for another company. And yes, I truly felt sad for this employee. This is a global engineering company, massive. And around about 2019, now he was a storeman, so 2019, around about there, globally they closed all warehouses. So that means that, I suppose, most storemen were probably retrenched or put in other positions or whatever. So in this case, he was a storeman, and there was an opportunity available to operate in a support function for engineers, which means that you need to learn the products, but also the science behind the products. Now, globally, the qualification from a education perspective is that you need a BSc degree. But otherwise, you're like an engineer or whatever, you know. And naturally, you must have passed mathematics and technical drawings and these kind of things. And he failed grade 9 maths. So now they put him, they've got like a career path for him, it's an academic path. You must first get NQF level 1 maths and eventually work yourself up to NQF level 6, and then they will take it from there. They assigned mentors for him to train him the product and the ins and out and whatever the case may be. But eventually, after months, they had so many performance reviews with this guy. He got enrolled in a college. In his first year, he was supposed to do 4 subjects. He only managed to complete 2, and even those he failed. And here we sit in a situation where he actually cannot do it. Such a great opportunity, and the person does not have the ability to do this. You know, and then the client told me, but look, it's difficult, you know, because now you will sit in a room full of engineers. That's the cream of the top.
Yeah.
And he failed grade 9 maths. So you can't do that. You can't put a person like that out there. You see. So I felt really sad because he was a great guy. And he's trying his level best, but he's not able. Yeah. He's not able to do it. And I actually spoke to my brother about this, because my brother, he's now a software engineer, but he used to be a mechanical engineer working on ships. He is mathematics, he's clever. I remember when I was in grade 6 in those days, grade 8, I failed maths during the year. And then eventually he started giving me classes. I became so good, I gave extra classes at school after hours. That's how good my brother was.
Yeah.
You know? So, he is. He understands mathematics. And then, he told me, the people are actually setting up for failure because, if you can't do maths now, there's just no way.
There's no way you can be an engineer or something.
But anyway, so in terms of the procedures, I want to come back to the Cape Town case. This is where the educational comes in. What is the procedure in how to deal with poor performances? Is it a hearing? Because you also hear now that, I was part of a poor performance hearing, and some people already object, but we don't do a hearing when there's poor performance, There's also a bit of a nostalgia where a lot of people have heard about a hearing, and everything, if they want to dismiss somebody, there's a hearing. You want to train somebody, there's a hearing. When there's incapacity for medical reasons, there's a hearing. We go to, the hearing is our go-to thing, you see. But we need to draw a bit of a differentiation here. When we talk about a hearing, the typical use of a hearing, that is for misconduct. That is in terms of Schedule 8, subsection 4 of the Code of Good Practice, Now, when somebody commits misconduct, maybe somebody steals this cup, okay? That kind of person you will normally charge, and this is now the misconduct procedure. You'll charge a person in the form and the language you understand. You'll give him a reasonable notice. He's got the right to be represented, have interpreter, reasonable notice to prepare and make representations for the inquiry, and then the outcome must be given preferably in writing. Now that's the misconduct process, but the poor performance process actually does not use Schedule 8.4. I'm going to read it now.
Before you read, where do KPIs and KPAs come in?
That's a very good question. Now, you see, in terms of the misconduct, Schedule 8, subsection 7 of the Code of Good Practice, I call it the golden rules of dismissals. It actually speaks that employers must have rules in the workplace. Yes. So when it comes to misconduct, we typically look at a rule. Like, for instance, you need to report for duty at 8 o'clock in the morning. So if you report at 10 past 8, then you have broken the rule. Then you're late. But when it comes to performance issues, we're talking about a standard. In other words, if you must sell these cups, these mugs, you must sell 10 a week. That's a standard. Or you must clean it to a certain level. Okay, and that is where KPIs are coming in, your key performance indicators. So typically an employee will get a job or a contract of employment, then a job description, and then KPIs. Those KPIs will advise you as an employer as to all the key aspects of your job that is really important and to what level you must perform. I think typically once or twice a year there's like a review where you get rated and scored, and often those ratings is like out of 5, where 0 is you don't perform at all. Normally a 3 is like you average, you're just meeting the requirements, and 5 is like you're like a superhero, you know. So when I say 2 out of 10, that means you didn't pass at all. You're just like under it, you know.
Yeah, but now, are they linked to what we are discussing today?
KPIs?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
All right.
Yeah, it's absolutely. So in the Cape Town case and also this other case, there are certain KPIs that you have to achieve. There are certain performance standards. So I'm going to read the procedure quickly and apply it how it was used in this company, and you'll see how it comes out. Okay. But in terms of the procedure, we're talking about Schedule 8, subsection 9 of the Code of Good Practice, guidelines in cases of dismissal for poor work performance. Any person determining whether dismissal for poor work performance is unfair should consider the following things. A, whether or not the employee failed to meet the performance standard. This is the KPI. Did the person achieve that KPI or not? But now, you can't fail a KPI if you're not aware of the KPI.
Yeah.
You see. And also sometimes, you know, an employer will set out certain KPIs for your job. Maybe you must do the following 10 things. And then every month it changes. No, you must also do this, or you must also do that. And this poor employee can never pin it down. Okay, it's this. It's always this, then that, then that.
Then there's a lack of consistency.
There's a lack of consistency, so you can't do that. So you need to define in advance what those KPIs are.
You just remind me of that case that I did about 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah?
Whereby they said, yeah, we were just informally talking. Nothing was formalized. That's when we discovered that there's a document that was submitted to me, and then it was not signed by the employee because the employee was never engaged.
Oh, I remember, yeah. Oh, is that, yeah, that
Yes.
case also. Yeah, I did. It was probation. I didn't make my probation, apparently. They never sat with me. But they've done even a scorecard on me, but I was never part of it. Yeah, exactly. Number B, if the employee did not meet the required performance standard, whether or not, 1, the employee was aware or could reasonably be expected to have been aware of the required performance standard. Number 2, the employee was given a fair opportunity to meet the required performance standard. And 3, a dismissal was an appropriate sanction for not meeting the required performance standard. Okay? And yes, part of that process is, you know, can the employer provide any assistance and training and so? But employees must understand this. It's not a must that under all circumstances an employer must train you. Like for instance, if you are employed as a brain surgeon in the hospital, you can't expect your employer, but they didn't train me.
But they cry in front of the commissioner.
Yeah, but how can your employer
I never got support. I never got that word support.
If you are employed as a CA, a chartered accountant, You can't ask your boss, how about you didn't train me how to be an accountant. You went to school, Moss.
Yes.
You see, so the higher you go in terms of your organization, if you're the CEO, so there's very little mercy for you or an expectation for the employer to coach you, to train you, or whatever. You must still follow the process, but there will be very little room to maneuver. But if you're a lower employee, okay, so maybe there's a bit more room because maybe the employer can actually do more for you. But the higher you go, you become a specialist employee. You know, sometimes you are more specialist than your employer himself. You can't expect your employer to train you. I mean, you see what I'm saying? So, but now, where does hearing come in? Because nowhere here does it say you must subject a person to a hearing. Now, the thing is this. Technically speaking, you don't need to subject a person to a hearing because per performance, a procedure is not an isolated incident. It's not me putting you in a hearing and now you don't perform. It's actually a journey. There are counselings that happens over a period of time. The Act does not define how long. It depends on the circumstances. I suppose if you're a CEO, you don't need 2 years. Okay, so you probably need a week. Okay, you don't have a lot of room to maneuver, you see. So, but the basics are still the same. There need to be a timeline whereby a person his performance will be reviewed. Some companies call this a PIP process, with other words, a performance improvement program, or some call it a performance management program. It's the same thing, but there's a timeline where they will sit down with you and review your performance. And at the end, if you're not performing, okay, an employer, if it is reasonable to do so, can dismiss you. But okay, look, our dismissal law is still based on what I call the audi alteram partem rule. So it is prudent, okay? It's not in the law per se, but it's prudent, once you've done your process, subject a person to some kind of forum whereby you can make an opportunity to make representation. Why not to dismiss the person? So in this case, the employer did that, There were like 7 performance review sit-downs where they sat and reviewed the employee's performance, and this employee got never higher than 2. It was always a 1, 2, a 1 or a 2, a 1 or a 2. So she was just not performing, even though she had the CV, fantastic CV. After how many weeks and so, she never improved. She received the counselings. Eventually, she actually got a final written warning to say, Sunshine, you need to wake up now. Poor performance. Eventually, she also went into an inquiry. She was actually offered a job that is more aligned with her skills, which she didn't accept because obviously there was a cut in salary. And she was dismissed, So, yes, went to the CCMA. But there was one thing, Tsepo.
Okay.
There was one elephant in the room. It's when the commissioner starts highlighting that. Now, I informed the client in advance, there's an elephant in the room here. Because she ended up working for the company for like 10 months. The first 3 months she was on probation. She passed probation. Oh, I told the client, look, we're not going to talk about probation. Because this is now, dis die gaatjie in hierdie gemors nou, verstaan jy? Ons gaan nou nie hieroor praat nie. At the CCMA, you can never lie, but you don't always have to talk the truth either. You can just keep quiet about the things you don't want to talk about, you see. So the commissioner's like, then he's like, did she pass probation? I'm like,
Exactly what I did with the fixed term contract, but the probation and what. I kept quiet and then.
So I just said, yes, Mr. Commissioner, she passed her probation. And he's like, elephant in the room. How did she pass probation, but she failed performance? Yesterday she was fine, today she's not.
And then?
It's still my opinion that had we gone for arbitration, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Because the reality of the matter is, it was a small company, it was a startup, it was a new position. Not even the employer was 100% certain as to what the KPIs must be. And, if this was a large corporate structure, I think it would have been different, okay? But the reality of the matter is, when you look at how she advocates her on herself or on CV, what she complains of in the 7-Eleven, and over a period of 7 sit-downs in terms of her counselings, there's never an improvement.
There's never a 3 or 4.
So there's never a 3 or 4. So yes, she passed the performance review. some of the KPIs, I suppose, was different in terms of what she was assessed because the position changed a bit. Once the review process started, the KPIs remained the same. But I think there was a bit of a distance from the KPIs in terms of when she started and in terms of when they realized, okay, this position actually looks like this. It's a bit messy, but there are small employers in me. And I think there's, in our labor dispensation, there's a bit of grace too for that kind of situation. So I think if you explain, listen, we're not talking about a blue-collar worker here. We're talking about someone who's got a BCom in marketing or whatever the case may be. She's well experienced. Yes, there's a bit of potholes along the way, but she should be able to absorb that. And then still, they've held her hand for so long, and they had many weeks, weekly performance reviews. Weekly. Always. She couldn't improve from the 1 week to the next. She was completely out of depth.
Michael Jackson bad.
You see, so she was clearly not what she advocated herself to be. But that's the process, Chap.
Okay. One last clarification that I want you to educate the employers on. Oh, but they must still, get us to come and assist them. But well, story for another day. There will be employers who are like, charge someone for misconduct, but start the charge sheet, the charge itself for performance in that on the 17th of April 2025, you gave bad customer service to a customer and the customer complained something. So what is the danger in that?
Well, one thing I like about our labor laws and the way it's been applied in dispute resolution is that long time ago, employers and employees can get away with technicalities. These days, not really anymore. I mean, that concept evolved quite nicely through the court. So these days, whether a charge is too vague, it can be a wrong thing, or whether the charge was incorrectly framed, like you now say, you use poor performance as a label, but the actual underlying nature of the discharge or the misconduct was actually misconduct. The courts are sort of saying, listen, let's not hide behind labels. Because not everybody are lawyers, If the employer understood that he did something wrong, even though you said poor performance there, it's still the responsibility of the commissioner to understand and identify the real nature of the dispute. So even though it says poor performance, if this is clearly a misconduct thing and the employee is aware that he didn't provide customer service to, as you just said now, he may have been negligent, whatever, they should be fine. But you know what, now? I always also say now, when it comes to dispute resolution at the CCMA, there are certain things that you need to say and there are certain things you mustn't say or try to stay away from because it opened doors. Because now if that employee is sitting there with the union, they're going to
That's what I was going to say.
Ever.
That's what I was going to say.
They're gonna go in this poor performance bandwagon and try to convince the commissioner why the company followed the wrong process. The employer should still be fine, but you know what? You're gonna sit there for days with a crying union. Oh, Mr. Commissioner, they said poor performance.
Because
so it's important to try to do it right. It's not the end of the world if you do it wrong, but you know what? Everything. I know the commissioner is the most important person in that room, but he's not the only important person. There's yourself and the union and the employee too. They're going to try to sniffle out any possible mistake now and make a huge issue of it.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. I think even employees now, they know what we're talking about when we talk about poor performance and when we talk about misconduct.
Tsepo, just something else quickly before we do jobs review now.
Yes.
I'm getting some nice feedback about our Chaile Time podcast. I've met people last week. The company is a Scottish company. People in Scotland, they're watching Chaile Time.
When are we going to Scotland?
Freedom. Scotland, I'm telling you. I've heard recently there's a big company in Cape Town, I'm going to say their name. Apparently the office staff, they're working, they've got this big TV and our Chaile Time is on the TV and people are learning labor law while they're working. And even now, when I was in Durban, the people are like, Chaile Time. And
I remember telling you when I was in Witbank one time.
but you're very famous. People, even the commission is like, I know that voice.
He didn't even see my face. It's like, I could recognize this voice. Hey, Mr. Chaile Time, is that you? Then I'm like, yes, sir, it's me.
Yeah, it's nice. But anyway,
it seems like we are growing organically.
Organically, yeah. Anyway, so now it's our opportunity for job reviews. So every week we advertise fresh vacancies we have in our networks. We have a large network in the HR space in South Africa. So, let's see what jobs are available and see you next week, Tsepo.
And please don't forget to send your CV with a short video so that we can do a shout out for you before we start our episode.
And enjoy your trip. You're flying to East London to see you, mate, today.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're flying all over the place.
First time in East London, so let me go.
It's not your first time. You were there a few months ago.
No, it's Umtata. I always go to Umtata, Cape Town, Durban. I've never been to Gqeberha in East London.
Okay.
But it's my first time, yeah.
Okay, you must enjoy.
Okay. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye.
Good morning, Harmony people. Let's have a look at some of the vacancies posted nationwide on our Harmony People's Network this week. First up, in Keto Ridge Netol, Destiny Staff Solutions are looking for a GCC engineer. Duos River Chrome Mine in Limpopo have a vacancy for an HR administrator. People Resolutions have an opening for an HR Managed Systems Implementation Specialist, and SBV is looking for a Human Resources Business Partner. Capital Logistics in Johannesburg is looking for an Office Administrator. For the full information of the mentioned positions, how to apply, as well as more available positions, find the vacancy link in the description. You will also find a link to a useful video on how to compose a winning CV and have a successful interview. Tune in again next week for more Harmony vacancies.